Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, and in today's review I would like to share with you my build of the Modern Nuclear CR02A JiHu-II model kit. This is my third Modern Nuclear kit after Moleking in February and more recently Lu-Bu. With those two being a very good experience, the expectation for this JiHu's quality was quite high. But also, while Moleking and Lu-Bu are more of a fantasy design kits, which I appreciate, but I'm not a super big fan of, the JiHu is anything but that. The CR02A JiHu-II is Modern Nuclear's first proper mecha model kit, and when I first saw it announced, I was extremely excited and wanted to get my hands on this beauty as fast as possible. And speaking of getting my hands on this kit, here is a quick message about the store that helped me make this video possible. I buy almost all of my figures and third-party kits at Gundam.com. They offer great prices, awesome customer service, and a nice points program. If you decide to shop for your next kit or figure there and would like to support this channel even more, consider using reviewer code SKH. It helps the channel a lot. As always, do your own research and only purchase from stores that you are comfortable with. Now, back to the video. So I'm gonna call this kit JiHu for the remainder of this video. This unit of kit comes in a neat box measuring slightly larger than a beefier master grade box. I unfortunately forgot to both weigh and measure the box amidst the unboxing excitement, but it is really not a very big box. As per Modern Nuclear's standard, everything was packed very carefully. In terms of the packaging, we get a decent collection of runners, a box with the metal joints, an instruction booklet, and a sheet of water decals. Let's go over the runners and plastic quality real quick. Pretty much all runners are made of ABS plastic, with the small exception of a few POM parts. The gray inner frame runners have a nice mechanical shade to them and have a lot of printed surface level detail, while also adding detail on top of the metal and POM pre-built joints. The black inner frame runners are done extremely well. Modern Nuclear went with a slightly matte surface finish on the black plastic and added some extra surface level detail. The black plastic looks really high quality and premium. Then the inner frame is further complemented by a few runners of plated and colored plastic, in particular red, silver and copper shade of gold. The plating in my copy of the kit was super consistent and sturdy. And then we got a couple of shades of armor green plastic, brighter salad green and deep army green. The plastic on these runners also has a slight matte finish, but not quite as good as the black inner frame plastic. At first I was a bit disappointed seeing the rather cheap looking green plastic parts, but having assembled the kit, I believe it is done on purpose, as it gives the kit more of a grunt-like outer shell while keeping the expensive inner frame detail under the hood. And then there is also a small runner of transparent parts for eyes and some effect parts. The eye parts specifically seem to be painted on one side out of the box. In total you get about 34 runners, not counting the 3 action base plates. If you would like to see the entire unboxing experience live, please check out my live stream from May 23rd, 2026. The build process for this kit is quite easy and very satisfying. Modern Nuclear separates each part into its own section, like head, legs, torso, and so on and so forth. Tells you which runners you need per section, and then tells you to stop in the section if you don't want to add the armor to the part. It is really smart and concise approach, and at first I didn't even notice the little inner frame milestone warnings until an amigo pointed out them to me. And this kit has a phenomenal inner frame. It does follow the same general principle as my previous Modern Nuclear builds, where you layer inner frame on top of the pre-assembled metal/POM plastic skeleton or joints. In this case, however, Modern Nuclear went a step further and gave us a pretty much fully fledged out inner frame with various interconnects and gimmicks, but more on that in a second. What is even more impressive though is how premium this inner frame looks, simply because it has a few plated plastic and red colored parts added to it. There is really only a handful of those, but they easily elevate the detail and give the inner frame that MGEX look without significantly increasing the complexity or the cost of this build. Then once you have the armor, the picture changes quite a bit. Unlike the splendor of the inner frame, the armor is more angular and bulky, and is also done in this rather cheap-ish looking green plastic. It is not a complete soap dish glossy Shrek pool plastic? No, it's an okay looking green plastic, but in comparison to the inner frame, it really does change the tone quite a bit. And I believe that is done on purpose. The vibe I get from this kit is that this is a Pacific Rim style Jaeger grunt mech. It is supposed to look rugged and durable on the outside, functional, ready for action, full of weaponry and toolage, while at the same time it is driven by super duper advanced and intricate mechanisms on the inside that can only be seen by removing the armor out of the way. And speaking of moving the armor out of the way, you really don't need to abandon the outer shell of this kit if you want to enjoy this glorious inner frame, because this kit has a truly mind-boggling amount of gimmicks. You can see on these beauty shots that entire limbs explode with detail via all these hatches and doors. You even get some completely unexpected yet absolutely awesome gimmicks like the opening lower knee armor hatch, sides of the feet, lower and front chest, an absolutely mad forearm wrist flick joint that opens a hidden gun, and the backpack assembly is a hunk of a citadel with some of the most intricate and well-integrated gimmicks I've come across yet. How about we cover all of these hatches and this kit's articulation in some truly autistic detail. So let's pick this bad boy up, and as you have probably already guessed, this kit is a hell of a poser. He is a joy to work with even despite all of the armor hatches. Let's quickly strip him down. So as you can see in this pose, I actually twisted the feet around. Normally this long toe part is supposed to point forward, but I saw someone messing with this kit online and I thought it looked pretty cool, as this turnaround feet option gives it a bit of a dynamic pose, like a mecha skater if you will. There is an opening hatch at the front of the foot which reveals some nice inner frame detail, and then we have some side opening armor parts. Then the front of the foot is articulated and is split into two parts. At first, the front section moves and the center part engages later to further extend the range of motion. You could say it is double jointed even. Then the heel track part has this articulated armor guard, and the track itself also moves front to back a little bit. On the inside, the feet use a pre-assembled metal NPLM joint that connects to the lower leg via a metal peg, and the overall articulation of the feet is honestly quite insane. I mean, the front extension angle is just mad, and is achievable partially because of the flip-style ankle joint, which turns and flips out of sockets similar to what the butterfly joints do for shoulders, but smaller in scale, yet still very sturdy. The feet also have a little bit of side-to-side swivel as an extra bonus. And then going up to the lower legs, there is a really cool inner frame gimmick on the back. So when you move the ankles, this gray inner frame part actually slides in and out of the cuff assembly. Such a nice mechanical detail. Then the front black armor part is articulated to play nicely with the feet, and the bright green side armors at the lower leg open up to reveal some of the black and red inner frame detail. Going up to the knee, we get some even cooler stuff. First, the knees are double jointed and can pretty much fold the legs in half, where the lower leg touches the back of the thigh. The main knee joint has a sliding gimmick for the upper knee armor and the thigh inner frame. In front of the knees, there is this massive armor hatch that swings down to reveal some of the inner frame detail. I really like the addition of these side pipes for the extra little touch of brutality or industrialism. Then the upper knee armor hatch also opens up to reveal a plastic MGEX style detail and an attachment port on each side. And I actually used it in one of my poses to host the rocket pod. And then the sides of the knees also swing open to reveal even more of this glorious inner frame detail. There is not much going on in the thighs except for these opening knife holders and a very interesting front and back waist armor design approach. As you can see, there is pretty much no waist armor on the waist, and what Motor Nuclear did, they designed these little attachment modules that snap onto the front of the upper thighs and effectively serve as a waist armor stand-ins, except that we don't have to deal with the usual fight between the hip articulation, and waist armor detail. Plus, these modules can also be converted into holsters by simply replacing the attachment holders and snapping the two massive revolvers onto them. And speaking of the articulation in the hips, this kit can pretty much do a negative split without breaking a sweat, and the thigh joints, very similar to the ankle joints, can also flip out to sort of drop the thighs further from the body to create a bit more space. Because the waist joint is pretty much a solid monolithic part, you don't get a hip drop gimmick. And while the waist is pretty lean and monolithic and has a very, I might say, curious gimmick at the front, where this section slides out and opens up. I'm not sure what technical or functional aspect this particular gimmick serves, but giggity, 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 I digress. At the back of the waist, we can attach this ammo holder / waist armor, but more on that in a little bit. Moving up to the torso, it is attached to the waist by a pretty sturdy plastic bag. I would have preferred to see metal there, but having posed this kit for maybe 3 or 4 days straight, I think this plastic bag is sturdy enough. And it also is very squeaky. The torso, of course, turns 360 degrees because of this bag, and then the lower torso is actually a bit of a spacer. You see, the main upper chest assembly is mounted on a separate peg to this spacer, which means the front to back abdominal crunch is achieved via a yet another, but this time much bigger, flip joint. The back extension is quite limited, but the front crunch is very decent and can increase by extending this flip joint. Then, because of this upper torso bag, you can turn the chest and the lower torso spacer independently, and of course we get some very nice side-to-side swivel too. And now onto the torso gimmicks, and oh man, there are so many of them. The main chest plate flips down to reveal the reactor core and more of the MGEX-esque inner frame detail. In my case, I have some LED wires running here and a little bit of blue tack. I'll get a glue gun at some point in the future to make my mods a little bit prettier, but for now this will do. Then the lower chest front armor also opens up on each side, and we can also open these hatches on the side of the hat that hide magnetic cannons. And normally when you close this front chest armor hatch, it sits pretty flush. Unlike in my case, there is a gap due to the LED wiring going on. Now going to the backpack assembly, first we have these manipulator arms. They fold up when not in use. They have some decent range of motion and have these claw grabbers for holding. I would have preferred if they had some attachment pegs for the accessories or holes in the middle for the adapters. Nevertheless, they are pretty sturdy and I was able to make them hold various accessories and do some assisting activities at the back of the figure, like reloading a gun mid-fight or holding a spear. And then we get a cockpit and 2 pilots. This kit has a really dope cockpit. Let's open it up. Open the hatch and swing up the main lid, which is actually done very well. The lid has 2 arms instead of 1, which make it hold steady rather than flop around when opened. And then we pull on this lever and slide out the entire cockpit assembly with the pilot. A very satisfying mechanism. And right next to the cockpit we have these 2 hatches. We can open them up and then, by pulling on these gray parts, the 2 fuel cylinders slide out into view. This is such a cool little detail. I'm not 100% sure about the fuel pods though. I think rockets would have been cooler in this place, but regardless, this mechanism is a freaking chef's kiss from Motor Nuclear. I also have LEDs inside these pods and hopefully you can see them on the beauty shots. Inside the cockpit, you are supposed to have another LED unit, and in my case, I decided not to wire a custom light since I was not planning on keeping the cockpit open for my poses with this kit. And if we close the cockpit and the backpack hatches, it once again looks like a solid monolithic piece of armor. Let's move on to the arms. There are a few gimmicks here as well. First, the arms are on a butterfly joint, and since the arms are mounted on the bags, they move around very easily. The shoulders are attached to the main arm plastic tube. The shoulder armors have these plated plastic handles, I guess for something like a chopper drop-ins or something. They are articulated just a little bit, and I'm not entirely sure what purpose they serve. but they look cool. The top of the shoulder is very industrial and shows something like an exposed inner mechanism. You can also see some gate marks up top right here. The front and back shoulder armors swing open to reveal even more of this superb inner frame detail. In this particular case, you get a single gray part with a bunch of surface level printed detail and a single plated plastic silver part to maintain that MGEX feel. Just like in the other places on this kit, I panel lined the shoulder inner frame to make that printed detail pop just a little bit more. The arms can rotate at the bicep, and going down to the elbow we get a very decent joint band that allows the arm to fold almost completely. And when you bend the elbow, you can also see the square silver-plated plastic cylinder extending and shooting out a little elbow piece for some close combat action. Going down to the forearms, these bad boys are packed full of cool stuff. The upper plate opens up to reveal more of the inner frame. Then the outer plate has this super fancy gimmick. Let me grab one of the arms and show you how it works. So when you have a wrist connected, if you do this flick motion with it, it will activate the outer forearm plate to open and reveal this small triple barrel cannon. And this mechanism does not seem to weaken the wrist joint either. Really well done by Motor Nuclear. They also have this always visible underslung gun barrel, and finally on the inside of the forearm we can open this hatch to reveal a saber handled storage compartment. One really cool small detail about this compartment is that there is a little nipple on the opposite side of the armor that makes this hatch snap into place rather than rely on the sturdiness of the joint. And as for the saber handles, this kit does not include any actual saber effect parts, but more on that later as well. Moving on to the head unit, I have this halo-like head attached currently, and I cannot remove it unfortunately, as I have a custom LED sitting inside with the wires sort of hard locking it in place. In terms of gimmicks, you have two opening hatches on top of the head and at the back. I removed the back one due to the wires needing a little bit extra space. And we also get an alternate head option that gives me some strong Transformers vibes. Now let's quickly cover the accessories, and there is quite a few of them. First, you have this massive revolver pistol. I added some decals to it, and the black plastic that it's made of has some nice texture similar to the inner frame, so it looks pretty decent out of the box. It has a neat little gimmick where you can swing out the ammo cylinder and spin it around. Then we get this combo weapon, which is another revolver and a machine gun combined. You can disconnect the revolver and see this BMG style muzzle brake. Then we can also open up the gun into spots and detach the barrel magazine. Going back to the barrel, we can also slide this beefy cover to transform the looks of it. And this other revolver also has an opening mechanism. It folds in half, and the inner mechanism inside the revolver actually pops out the cylinder for a reload. And if we slide the revolver back onto the rifle, we get a big ass double barrel gun, and you can swing out this gray arm on the side to wield this gun in both hands, just like on the box art. Going to the next accessory, the back waist ammo holder. It stores 4 magazines for that main gun. All these magazines can swivel out and detach from the holder, and then you can use the manipulator arms to sort of grab them for a reload. Really dope stuff. One thing about these mags though, be extra careful with these gray plates that are used for peg attachment. The plates themselves attach to the magazines on just 2 thin, tiny pegs, and those are fairly fragile. I broke mine off on one of the magazines and I had to glue the plate in place. Also, if you choose to remove the plates, you will see this really cool inside detail with the ammo neatly rolled in place. Then another accessory are these side holsters on the thighs. They store 2 foldable knives and can be replaced with space holder pegs. Then we have this massive spear that consists of 3 parts, and you can either wield it in hands. It is also light enough for the manipulator arms to play with, and you can attach it to the shield in 2 ways at least, either in parts for storage or as an integrated spear. And speaking of the shield, I was not sold on this color at first, as it looked a bit of like poop diarrhea to me at a quick glance, but I think it plays sort of well with the rest of this color scheme once the kit is all assembled. It has this utilitarian military style and feel to it, and the shield really benefits from some panel lining to bring out some of the edges on the surface. And it also has a few gimmicks gimmicks of its own. The main top part slides down and opens up this center section for an all-attack mode, and then the side flaps also have a little bit of articulation to them. When you combine the shield in this slid-down mode with a spear, it really looks dope. The inside of the shield is quite busy, as it can be configured in multiple ways to store various attachments, and the main connector arm is a super stiff POM joint. It pops into outer forearm plug right here. And then we have the rocket pod. It is a bit of a monolithic chunk with two opening gimmicks. At the front, when you open the main doors, which are connected by the way, the rockets slide out a little bit into view, and the back hatches are a bit stiff to open, and they are independent, and they look like thrusters, I guess. There are two connection holes up top, but the rocket pod is supposed to use this bottom mounting bracket and this manipulator arm, and this arm can be attached in a few spots on the kit: shoulders, sides of the thighs, where the holsters reside, and at the front of the knees. I actually use it attached at the knees for some of my posing. This manipulator arm can also be used to store the main gun, as it has a little attachment flap at the back, and the pilot. In addition to the one in the cockpit, we have a standing up figure, and it's quite a big fella, coming at about 4.3 centimeters. For reference, a perfect grade pilot would be about 2.7 centimeters, let's say on the PGU-RX-72 on average, and a master grade sometime would be about 1 centimeter or under in terms of height if standing up. So in terms of scale, this mecha is actually pretty small, assuming these pilots are of average human height and not something like 7 or 8 feet tall space marines. For my pilot, I gave it just a little bit of color with some markers. And finally, we have the action base. It is a simpler one from Modern Nuclear, just 3 plates and a standard articulated neck. Nothing massive like the Molly King action base, but it does the job well. I was able to pose the kit on the action base without any balancing issues. I am only slightly worried about the plastic pack being used here. In my prior Modern Nuclear kits, this part was metal, and JiHu, when fully assembled and kitted out, weighs about 720 grams. For comparison, MGV-DAR is about 200 grams with an action base. In Era Fenrir is about 660 grams with its own action base, and Access Model Osiris is about 1.3 kilos. So while JiHu is not the fattest MG-sized kit, it is certainly up there, and I'm a little worried that this plastic bag on the action base might snap. Finally, we have a few pairs of hands, a left and right trigger hands, a pair of holding hands, a pair of semi-open pre-posed hands, a pair of karate chop hands, and finally a couple of fists. There is also a bunch of adapter and spare parts, and a leftover eyes insert for the Halo mask, which brings me to what I did not like about this kit. First and most importantly, the LEDs. I can sort of see this issue from 2 angles. First, the value. Why are we not getting the LED modules that this kit is specifically designed to accept? I don't like having to source those parts separately and deal with the penny pinching. My perception of Modern Nuclear from their prior builds is that they give you a premium out-of-the-box experience no matter your builder level. The exclusion of the LED modules is anything but that. Second point of view is the fact that even if you go through the trouble of sourcing the fitting LED modules, which I personally have not done by the way, I assume you will be stuck with the good old battery-powered pieces of junk. Not cool at all. As someone who is comfortable doing custom LED work, I appreciate the space created for the LEDs, as that makes my work easier, but it would have been even cooler if we had an LED solution that is fully wired and USB powered. In that case, I would have accepted selling that solution separately to the main kit or as a premium edition of the kit. Trust me, while the inner frame is super cool and all, there is plenty of space to work with inside the torso. And while we are on the LED topic, the eye inserts come pre-painted out of the box. This gesture is greatly appreciated if you don't plan on using the LED lights, but we don't get an option for eye inserts that are not painted. Not a huge issue, but a small pain in the butt. Next, the saber handles. We get 2 saber handles in the forearms, but we do not get any saber effect parts. I have no freaking clue why that is, and I think that is just cheap. After a little bit of testing around, I found out that you can barely fit some master grade effect parts. They need to be just under 1.5 mm thick. The plates for the ammo barrels are weight-bearing and need to withstand some reconnect abuse, and the two thin mountain pegs are begging for disaster. The decals are good quality and are not too thick, but I would have preferred to see more spare decal options, especially for the generic markings and signage, for customization purposes. The decal guide for this kit, while looking cool at the first glance, is actually pretty freaking bad. By using these 45-degree profile realistic pictures of the kit, they simply make it hard to see where they suggest you put the decals, and in a few spots, the glaring lights, like here on the page itself, make it even harder to see. I think they went too fancy for their own good, and a simpler diagram would have been much easier to follow, or at least a better lit and better composed shot of a real figure. Next, the articulated arm that holds the rocket pod. You only get one of those, and it is pretty annoying. I would have preferred to see at least 2 or 3 of them, so you can attach the rocket pod, the main gun, and maybe some other accessories. Then I have a minor gripe with the manipulator arms. I think those should have had gun mounting points on the inside of the claws, similar to what you get inside the hand, and maybe an attachment hole in the middle of the claw for some sturdy posing. And finally, no foil stickers. It is not a big deal, but the main gun has a little spot for the scope, and it looks a little bare if left unpainted. And speaking of leaving parts unpainted, the custom work done to this kit. Of course, the most obvious one is the LEDs. I used a handful of the 0402 SMD orange LEDs to add light effects to the front chest cameras, the main reactor core, and the 2 battery cells in the backpack. And I also added a 3mm yellow LED to the Halo-styled head unit. Then I panel lined all of the inner frame and armor with a black steady water-based panel liner. It is harmless to any type of plastic, and I tend to use it pretty much everywhere ever since I found it. I also used a little bit of Gallery gold marker to paint the scope on the main rifle, and a combination of Army Painter speed paint and AK real color markers to jazz up one of the pilot figures. And lastly, I applied most of the included decals with the help of Mr. Mark Setter and Softer. I did not use any top coat or paint other than the markers on this kit, and I intentionally did not attempt to paint over or otherwise cover any of the gate marks. So if you guys see them on the pictures, they are exactly where they're supposed to be, I guess. And let's try to summarize all of these thoughts. As you know, my friends, I'm a pretty positive guy. I love this hobby, I love making videos, and most of all, I love you all. So my takes are not super critical, but I try to present you all with the relevant facts and observations in every video, and I never accept any creative inputs. Anyhow, this kit is no exception. I think for 79 USD, this is easily one of the best ever model kits in this hobby yet. The quality of the execution, the design, the package, and the building experience, it is all easily top tier. Yes, there are kits that have better inner frames, like the Axis model Osiris for example, and yes, there are kits that have meaner design like the Infinite Dimension Nemesis, or the kits that have cooler armor gimmicks like the PGR-X72 or the Sky Defender, but none of those kits do all of these things in one single nearly complete package and do them all arguably pretty well for just 79 bucks. It is not a perfect kit, of course, due to some of its penny-pinching flaws like the missing LED modules and the saber effect parts, which I can sort of look over in view of the overall great package that we get. But I believe Motor Nuclear absolutely cooked with this one, and it easily competes with some of my all-time favorites like the previously mentioned Nemesis or Fenrir or Thunderbolts, both of them, and many others. And it is Motor Nuclear's first true mecha model kit in my view, going outside of their usual fantasy line of designs. I absolutely cannot wait to see what they come up with next, and if it is going to be anything like the CR02A JiHu-II, you bet we will be building that on the channel and reviewing it right here. And in the meantime, if you would like to get your copy of this wonderful model kit, consider checking out Gundamit.com and use reviewer code SKH. And that is about it. I hope that you enjoyed this review. Be sure to drop a like if you like this video and a comment if you really do. Subscribe for more cool content like this. I also have a model kit therapy live streams every Saturday where we get to chill and build some model kits together and rant about whatever. Join in and enjoy the good vibes. Also, all of my gear and tools are listed in the description of all of my videos. Some of the links are affiliates and some give you really nice discounts. And every time you use them, you help me make more cool videos like this one. I also recently started a Facebook community page where I post high-res pictures of my builds, including work-in-progress shots and various other community updates. Check out the link in the description and join it. I would love to see you all share your builds out there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.